In this video, we look at the likelihood of there once being a prehistoric Sarsen stone circle placed exactly where the Church of St Mary is now located, in the village of Twyford in Hampshire. Where was the circle located? What are Sarsens? How many of them and how large were they? Where are they now and why were they used? The village of Twyford lies some 3 miles south of Winchester on the B335 road on the higher ground of the eastern Itchen River Valley. Twyford literally means two fords and is named after the two original fords through the River Itchen, which were located at today's Norris Bridge on the road to Shawford, and also Berry Lane, which is now a footpath leading to the church, and both were likely far more important in times gone past, naturally forming a meeting and trading place. It's safe to assume that this would also be a convenient place for a form of worship and be marked by a circle of stones. The area consists of chalk downland, partly within the South Downs National Park, primarily made up of chalk, which is a porous white rock formed from the remains of microscopic sea creatures. Associated with the chalk landscape are many large flint nodules. These were easily collected and used for building, many examples of which can be seen all over Twyford today. As good as flint is, they are too small to be used for markers, and this is why Sarsen stone was in great demand. What are Sarsens? First of all, Sarsens has nothing to do with vinegar. Anyway, that is spelt differently. The larger stones at Stonehenge are Sarsens. The stones at Avebury are also Sarsens. These may be some of the most well-known ones, but by no means the only ones. Smaller Sarsens are found in many parts of southern England, although they're not as common today as they once were, as many have walked over the past centuries. We tend to think of stone circles as being large, such as those at Stonehenge or Avebury, but there were many other smaller ones, averaging about 40 feet in diameter, with much smaller stones, such as Boscawen stone circle, that is close to St Buryan in Cornwall. There are 316 known stone circles in England alone, and nearly 1,000 others in the rest of the UK and Ireland, according to Aubrey Bull's Gazetteer. It is thought that many of the smaller circles contain 19 stones. This number is thought to be related to the Metonic cycle, a period of about 19 years where lunar and solar cycles coincide. Is it coincidence that Twyford has about 23 Sarsen stones in various locations? Maybe some broke or were split when they were moved, increasing the total number. Sarsen stone formed some 55 million years ago from silicated sand deposits, forming a dense silica cemented sandstone, a dense solid rock that is very resistant to weathering. They don't break along flat plains, but rather they exhibit conchoidal fracturing, meaning that they break with a curved shell-like surface. This is why they are often found to have a rounded shape and have weathered or worked hollows. This photo of one of the Avebury stones is an example of this, and shows how these fractures could be seen as having a face or other mystical form, which may explain why early man found them interesting and magical. Perhaps they were thought to be effigies of gods or ancestors from the past. Although the last Ice Age glaciers didn't deposit rock as far as Twyford, the landscaping at that time was periglacial, dropping sandstone on top of the existing chalk, and subsequent weathering left many stones rolling down into the valleys, as well as lying just on or under the surface. It is likely that because they are often found in large groups, just lying on the surface, as if they were placed deliberately, early man considered them special in some way, and possibly possessing spiritual and healing properties. These still exist in places such as the Valley of Stones in Wiltshire. There were many others that have been harvested for use as building stone, so these have also walked, albeit with some help, to other places. Sarsen stones have always been revered and used as monuments, waymarkers, gravestones and building material going back to prehistoric times. These likely provided a meeting place during times before villages and towns existed, where people gathered for various reasons. Think in today's terms as village halls, market squares, maybe even pubs or football grounds. Some of these circles gained religious or worship status and led in turn to become the sites for churches. A very large number of stone circles have been lost or destroyed in the thousands of years since their construction, and this is likely what happened at the village of Twyford, but more of that later. If you think that large stones weighing upwards of 50 tonnes would have been impossible to move, well, think of Stonehenge and Avebury again. This isn't the place to discuss how these were moved. Experts are still working on that. The fact remains that they were moved. Countless other Sarsens of all sizes were removed in more recent times and likely broken up for road or building construction. Many others are likely to remain buried and yet to be discovered. The occupants of the nearby Iron Age St Catherine's Hill Fort would have been well acquainted with the fords at Twyford. In those days, as before, the water meadows we know today would have been influenced by the tidal river, resulting in a wide but shallow mud and sand area hazardous to travellers. Two large Sarsen stones mark the ford in Berry Lane and would have marked the safe crossing point at low tide and were likely in place centuries before. A fording place, a place of worship, a place of meeting. It was a natural progression that people would settle here. A blacksmith to tend horses, ale and coach houses, traders, clergy, and soon a thriving and growing community. Written as Twyford in the Domesday Book of 1086, there was a Saxon church, and the area was certainly well known and occupied many centuries before that. This isn't a detailed history of the village of Twyford. Much has been written by others covering that subject in great detail, but we shall look at where some of those Sarsen stones ended up. The Church of St Mary in Twyford has a long history. The Saxon church on the site was replaced by a Norman church in the 12th century. During its demolition in 1876, the old tower foundations were found to have been built on a circle consisting of 12 heavy Sarsen stones, which needed to be slightly relocated, some 15 feet down on what would have been the original ground level. It is likely that such a stone circle existed here some 5,000 years ago, marking a place of worship, trading or meeting, the site being Christianised whilst retaining stones, either due to superstition, in recognition of existing worship practice, or perhaps being just too much effort to move. Places of importance or worship tend not to be lost, but rather change over time to suit the circumstances. During the time of the tower demolition, there was little respect or knowledge about stone circles. The site must have been important enough to continue using as a place of worship, but the stones themselves would have had little meaning other than getting in the way, although they could find use as building or monumental material. Many of the stones were reused when the new church was being constructed. This makes sense, as they would have been difficult to move or break up, and also being consecrated would have been important enough to keep on site. It is said that some got in the way and were small enough to be removed completely. If so, where did they walk to? Large hard stone is uncommon around the Twyford area, so they would have found many uses. The church was rebuilt using knapped flint with brick banding and imported Bath limestone for door and window casings. This is a likely source of such stone being used in numerous locations in the village. Limestone is a freestone, meaning that it can be cut at straight angles, ideal for lintels and the such, but very different to the way Sarsen splits. Walking stones. Considering their considerable size and weight, the Sarsen Stones of Twyford do seem rather keen on discovering new places to move to. Certainly other Sarsen stones exist in the village, at least 23 according to local surveys. The most prominent one is at the corner of the main road and Queen Street, near the Phoenix Inn, by the old Carter's Forge, lately Mahoney's newsagents. This sarsen was either placed to protect the building or for use as a block to mount horses, or perhaps both. This photo of 1870 shows it was most welcome even then as a place to rest. The same view today shows many changes to the road and cottages, yet the sarsen defies all efforts to modernise. The two large sarsens that exist in Berry Lane between the church and the river are now difficult to see due to being reburied by silt and soil. It is unknown whether they were part of the original stone circle or were completely separate, used as markers for the safest fording place. There is another in the avenue, in the front left-hand side of the appropriately named house, Sarsen Stone. One on the corner of Bourne Lane and Hazley Road. One in Park Lane, outside a house named Greenwood. And there used to be one on the drive to a house named Birdsong in Manor Road, which has since walked, or at least been relocated to a new position, which I have located and photographed. Some possible remnants are near the church itself. There are some rocks in Berry Lane used to deter parking, while most are likely Bath limestone left over from the reconstruction of the church. One of them is a distinctly different colour and shows this typical spherical cracking of sarsen. There are many other sarsens in the village, but as they are on private land, it would be unfair to disclose their exact location here without permission of the landowners. So even considering their considerable bulk and weight, these stones do have a habit of walking about. Sarsen stones are believed by many to have spiritual, mythical and magical properties. They certainly attract much interest even today. A major constituent of them is quartz, which certainly has piezoelectric and resonant properties and are thought by some to amplify energy, shield against negative energies and promote balance, healing and clarity. We see Sarsen stone today as being rather dull in colour, but when newly broken, its surface is bright, sparkling and glistens. This would have seemed magical and very attractive to early people, looking very much like the stars shining on a clear dark night. Whatever your own beliefs, Twyford is truly lucky to have these stones within the village, and all effort should be made to protect and preserve them. If you are lucky enough to have one on your property, please look after it so that it may look after you. Please comment below if you know where the other stones are. I'm sure many villagers have thoughts and memories of these precious historical artefacts.